So we're picking right back up on restoring my abandoned 1993 RX7. In the past couple videos, we've stripped the car completely down to a bare shell. We've stripped off all of the old underbody coating. We've re-epoxy primed it, re-undercoated it, cleaned up the engine bay, repainted all that, and now it's time to focus on the interior, because once we have the interior all painted and done, we can actually start putting some parts back on this car while we prepare to actually go and get painted. Well, while we paint it. So let's jump back into it. Let's start getting this interior prepped, get this thing going. Finally time to paint the interior on the RX7. I have once again been wire wheeling and stripping the interior of this car for 5 days now. Whenever I get time, shooting other videos in between working on customer cars and just knocking stuff out. So at this point, we are good to go. Once we get the interior of this thing painted, we can actually start getting stuff reassembled. Some of the interior can go back in, some stuff on the firewall can go on, subframes can go in, suspension can start getting powder coated and go on. So this is gonna be a huge step in the right direction for us. This will be my second time painting, so we'll see if the results come out a little bit better. I did learn a decent amount from painting the engine bay in the RX7, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the interior comes out a bit better. Granted, it's going to be covered up with a dash, carpet, all of the interior panels. It won't matter too much. I still want the practice because we are going to be painting the entire car at this point. I bought an inflatable paint booth for the shop. We're gonna get the RX7 into that inflatable paint booth and paint it that way. So any practice I can take, I'll take it. So this is what we are looking at right now. I kid you not, this has taken me days, absolute days, to strip this interior, to get it ready for primer, and then we got to prep the primer for paint and then clear coat. So I am excited to get through this, because once the interior is painted, that's really the crap work of doing all this bodywork stuff. The exterior is going to be so much easier to sand and get right, and primer and paint and all that stuff, versus this, because this, you've got all these nooks and crannies and all these little spots. You've got seam sealer, sound deadening, all of this stuff inside of the car that's just such a pain in the butt. I opted to just leave that sound deadening there, as well as another piece, and as well as the firewall, and we're just going to paint over it, because to be honest, it's not worth the hassle to keep trying to get more and more and more and more and more of it out. Right now we have all of it out, with the exception of that firewall and those two pieces right there. So same thing as before. What we're going to start off doing is back masking everything. So any hole that goes under the car, into the firewall, into the exterior of the car, anything like that. The hatch, the moonroof, the doors, all of that we're gonna back mask, so that way we can just focus on the interior right now. We have everything masked off now, so we can just focus on spraying the interior, not have to worry about getting overspray anywhere. We've got the sunroof masked, the entire back half of the car. It doesn't really matter if we get overspray back here, because we're gonna be doing all the body work to sand this thing smooth. I just don't wanna have to do extra body work if we don't have to. So now we can easily just focus on the hatch. So wax and grease remover, and then we start spraying. So that way, you know, this one actually works for vapor instead of just like dust particles, so. primer came out looking pretty good. Laid it out a lot smoother this time than the first time I did it. No runs. I will say that leaving the sound deadening on the firewall and on these strut towers right here definitely makes it look like it's not on there properly. It is. I just painted over the old sound deadening. It'll be fine, but you guys can see, dude, that laid down way smoother than the first time that I did this. So we're gonna let this primer sit for 2 days so that way it can off gas and cure. After it's cured, we're gonna put down our seam sealer on all the seams that we need to. We're gonna let that off gas for about an hour, and then we'll do our base coat and top coat, and hopefully by that point our interior is done. And then we'll let the clear coat cure. And at that point, we can start getting some of the stuff reassembled on here. Rear subframes, coilovers, carpet, dash, all of the fun stuff that goes back in the interior, so that way I don't have RX7 parts in a pile in the corner over there. You have no idea how much my OCD is killing me with that. But also, this thing is an absolute lifesaver for painting. I didn't smell a single vapor or anything like that versus like the dust particle mask that I was using before. I'll link that below. I'll also link below the epoxy primer, the clear coat, and then a link over to their base coats, so that way if you guys are looking to snag anything for your own projects, you can. Remember, we got a discount code over there. Smeedia 10 will save you 10% on Eastwood's site, which is cool. We like that. We like saving money. We like building stuff. We like doing DIY things. So we're gonna let this cure. We'll be back over here in 2 days. So after 2 days, the epoxy primer had cured. I went back over to the shop so that way we could start getting to work on getting the base coat down, the clear coat, the seam sealer, all the fun stuff. Now, some people have asked why I go through and I Scotch-Brite up the primer. It's mainly the areas where we're putting seam sealers where I try to focus on Scotch-Briting just to give the seam sealer a little bit better mechanical adhesion. But by Scotch-Briting all of the primer, we're actually giving the base coat better mechanical adhesion as well. So aside from the chemical adhesion that the paint would naturally have, we are also getting a small bit of mechanical adhesion by having the roughness in the primer. It's just gonna help the base coat stick longer, so that way we're not gonna have any paint flaking up or any issues with separation over time. Now, because we're not painting in a paint booth, because I don't have one yet, there is naturally going to be some dust debris that falls into the primer. So by Scotch-Briting all of the primer down, we're also getting all of that debris out, which is gonna help us get a smoother finish overall. So it's just gonna make everything look a little bit better. Granted, it's all gonna be covered up by carpet. It is what it is. Something I cannot harp on enough is clean. Wax and grease remover everything multiple times just to make sure that you're not gonna have any weird chemical reactions with the paint, because it's the last thing that you want is to spray your base coat and your clear coat and get some type of chemical reaction from something still on the primer. All clean. So now that we have the interior all clean, I've shown you guys how to do this before. Seam sealer, we're gonna seam seal every single seam because we don't want everything that we just did to go to waste and re-rust and have to go back through here and do this again, because I think that's the last thing that any of us wanna do. So let's get to seam sealing. Woo! Some people have asked why we're putting seam sealer. What is seam sealer? What does it do? Essentially, where you have two joints of metal, whether they're welded or riveted together, putting seam sealer there is going to keep all the weathering out. It's going to be water, dirt, debris, bugs, anything like that from getting between those two panels, either getting inside of the car or outside of the car. So the seam sealer is just creating another layer of protection from allowing water to come in or out for the most part. seam sealer is now cured up in here. We're gonna go ahead and clean the interior one more time with wax and grease remover. I'm gonna toss you guys back on head cam and we're gonna get the interior base coat put down, so it's gonna be similar to before. I'm gonna do a lighter first layer of base coat, just so that way it can get a little bit tacky. We'll let that flash for 10 minutes, do a heavier layer, let each flash in between 10 minutes, and then we'll do our clear coat. We'll probably do 2 or 3 layers of clear. I have learned to go a little bit slower when doing my clear. Slower motions, and don't fully let off the gun because it's gonna snap. It's gonna like snap the clear coat, so smooth motions, smooth motions. Let's get it cleaned one more time. Got my paint station all set up, should be good to go. The car is looking absolutely beautiful. Everything came out fairly decent. I'd give it like an 8.5 out of 10 if we're being realistic. Now, with not painting in a booth, obviously I'm going to get some dust and debris and whatnot in the clear coat. I'm not worried about that with the interior. Like I said, with the interior, we're running the full carpet and everything like that. So this was mainly for more practice and to get just some protection on everything. And so that way it is a full color change on the car, from the engine bay to the interior to the exterior. Everything will be this aspen white. So I am very happy with how all of this came out. We have a nice glossy sheen over the entire interior of the car. Strut towers are also looking glossy and beautiful. I did go ahead and just toss in our rear coilovers for now. Dude, it came out way better than I was anticipating. Up through the moonroof, you guys can see it. Everything looks beautiful, white, painted and whatnot. So it's good practice to get. I did miss a spot right here, but the windshield's gonna be there. It really doesn't matter. It still has paint and primer on there, so it's not gonna not have protection. I also tossed on our Chase bays, brake booster, delete, ABS thingy, the guy that holds the brake fluid and whatnot. Tossed on our little AC delete panel, because before I just left that open, so the panel actually makes it look more complete now. I am just over the moon with how this is coming out, because it's actually looking, I would say, like a pretty decent paint job. Like, I'd call this pretty good. Like, all the prep work's there, everything's there. The paint's not gonna start peeling, it's not gonna come up, the clear coat's not gonna fail or anything like that. So I would call this a huge win, and it just looks like it's got that like glossy shine to it too, which looks so good on the interior of a car, even if it's gonna be covered up. Whew, so at this stage with the RX-7, we have the underbody done, we have the engine bay done, we have the interior done. At this point, what we have left to paint is obviously just the exterior now, but I don't know if I want to do the exterior quite yet, or if I want to get some of the parts that we have sitting around, get them back on the car to make more room in here. I think that's going to be the better option for us right now, is to start putting the car back together a little bit, so that way we can paint the exterior with a little bit more room to move around. Like I said, I did buy an inflatable paint booth that is going to be going up in here, so I feel like any room that we can get back is going to be ideal for painting the car properly. So I think that's what we are going to do, is start reassembling a lot of the stuff that I have sitting around for the RX-7. We may paint I don't know if I want to. All right, so question for my professional paint people out there. Is it really going to make a difference if I paint like the fenders off the car separately from painting the car? Should I just put the fenders on, put the doors on, put all that stuff on, paint it all together as one seamless unit, so that way the paint kind of blends naturally? Or I feel like with the white, maybe it won't make that much of a difference. I don't know. You guys have more experience from me, so if you have any suggestions, let me know. But I think in the meantime, what we're gonna do is jump onto getting a lot of these panels bolted back up onto the car, just to free up some room in here. So huge shout out to our guys over at Eastwood for supplying the paint, the primers, the clear coats, everything for us to get this thing going. But with that, that's all I got for you guys. So if you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit that like button, turn to black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, sight, and whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be, to see this RX-7 come back to life, get tuned, to make some power, and be a timeless car once again, the subscribe button. I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.